that the politicians do not seem to be working for us.
Of the tax argument kind of feels like you're driving in the minivan and the kids are misbehaving in the back. Who are you gonna knock around the head a little bit? Not that you're allowed to do that, of course. You're gonna reach the people that are closest to you, right? When governments get grabby, they always go for those that are closest, those that are easiest to reach. Unfortunately, it's the middle class, it's the lower class, and it's the people in their own countries, and they're increasingly reluctant to kind of think about this from a national perspective in a global context. Well, we have our biggest trading partner in the East. We have our security partner, what should be our security partner in the West. Yet I'm still not entirely sure which way New Zealand will go. Will we choose to go with who buys our milk? Will we go with those that are potentially going to protect our borders? Because we sure as hell can't.
I'll go with who I share a culture with. I've spent a lot of time in the States. I like Americans. They have a lot of problems, but not as many as you would think if you actually spend time there. You know, there are a lot of fantastic places to visit, to live in the US. It's not all the things you see on television. So, and I think America is still the growth engine of the world, right? Where is the innovation going to come from? I mean, they're driving robotics and all of this information technology that's coming. This is the way things are going, and America's going to be leading it. I mean, China, yeah, they've done a lot of great things, but they also do a lot of copying. There's a lot of control. I wouldn't want more Chinese influence in New Zealand. We've lost enough freedoms already.
Which way do you think most everyday New Zealanders would go, though?
I really don't know. But one thing I do know, one thing I would like to raise, actually, and there's probably a little bit risky here, but when people look at these wealthy foreigners who we're trying to attract in, right, to invest, bring some money and invest it, the whole point of them being allowed to buy a home is that if you've got $100 million, you don't want to rent a house in New Zealand, right? It just doesn't. And what kind of house are you going to be able to rent anyway, right? It just doesn't work. So they put in their 10 million. Maybe they spend another 10 million. They're only going to be in the country for a certain amount of time a year because there's nothing going on here. So it's a nice place to visit. It's a nice place to go tramping, go to the lake, hang out with nice people. But where are you going to go in New Zealand in a private jet? I mean, you can fly to Sydney, but it'll cost you an absolute fortune. You won't see anything along the way. You won't have any fun, or maybe to Fiji. You can't get around. We're too far away. So my point is that we're not going to be overrun by these guys. The thing that we should be thinking about is our immigration settings, right? Because the country that we have followed on a lot of things, the UK, is going to hell in a handbasket. All right, and I was just recently in the UK. Central London, fine. Knightsbridge, Mayfair, Kensington, beautiful, right? I think I looked at a 4-bedroom apartment, about 60 million New Zealand dollars, you know, like just on a board. I didn't go and visit it. I'm going to waste their time. But, I mean, there's so much money there. Lots of Middle Eastern people there. A lot of money coming in from the Middle East, right? But then you go out of the UK, even Oxford, with its, you know, amazing university, the train station was third world. It's just run down, dirty, just horrible. The UK is struggling. I think instead of worrying about the rich, we've got to watch out for the rich, worry about who are we actually bringing to New Zealand? What are our immigration settings? You know, I mean, I would be more concerned about that, about allowing lots and lots of people to come in who don't share our culture, don't share our way of life, don't want to assimilate, want to take what they can get from our system. That's something that I would be more concerned about than 50 wealthy people spending a whole lot of money on a house. And one of the points I wanted to make about those guys, they're away all the time. Someone's got to look after the house. You can't leave a house shut up for months on end. You've got to open it up. You've got to clean it. You've got to do gardens. You've got to mow lawns. There'll be sparkies and plumbers and security guards and landscaping. And, you know, they'll be creating a lot of work for people. I don't think we need to worry about them, but I do think we need to think about our immigration.
Interesting. And I think a lot of your concerns that you raised there are probably mirrored by a lot of people living in countries like Australia, Canada, the US, and UK. Funnily enough, all Five Eyes countries. Where do you think a lot of this immigration policy and the direction that we seem to be going in, where do you think that actually comes from? I dare you to go there.
I think a lot of people would like to know the answer to that. What I do know is that the politicians do not seem to be working for us. And it's in any of the woke countries. You can call them the Five Eyes countries, the woke countries, the English-speaking Western countries. We're all doing really stupid things. Our standard of living is just dropping off a cliff. We're getting poorer by the day, and it enables people, to get in charge that shouldn't be. There's a real risk that next year we have Labour back in, and potentially with Greens. I mean, it'll be terrible for the country, but I don't know how to solve it. But I just so often see the legislation that changes and think, why the hell are they doing that? Who is that for? Who's it going to help? And that's one thing I do like about the coalition so far. What they've been saying makes a lot of sense. The problem is, as a property developer on the ground in New Zealand today, nothing has changed.
Moving across the Tasman from New Zealand into Australia now, we have Division 296, which looks increasingly likely to be inevitable. They have a left-leaning government who believe, apparently, that by taxing the rich, you can solve all the problems. The idea is to increase their government superannuation retirement scheme tax up by another 15%, so it's 30% overall. It's a tax on unrealized gains at that 3 million plus mark. A lot of people wouldn't be concerned, thinking, well, that's not me, that'll never be me, but they're not thinking, well, what happens if there's significant performance in the markets they're invested in, and what happens if you invest over a long period of time? It will capture a lot more people in the future than the 0.5% of people now, right?
It would already capture, according to the Financial Services Council in Australia, it'll capture 500,000 people today.
Wow.
So that's already quite a few people.
And what for, though, is what I wonder, because the countries that I've seen in Europe in particular that have tried this, they all reversed it shortly afterwards after all the wealthy people left. What do you think the long-term outcome of some sort of wealth tax like that is going to be?
I think it's nasty. I think that telling people to save for their retirement and setting up the superannuation structure where they start paying in from an early age, and then they pay in more and more and they build up their wealth, it's almost like the government's going now, ha, gotcha. You fell for our trick. So I think one of the knock-on effects of this tax on superannuation in Australia is that people will reassess as to whether or not they should actually pay in, or pay in only the absolute minimum that they need to, which is a shame, because the superannuation scheme in Australia has been very successful, one of the most successful in the world. A lot of people have got, substantial balances, which means that they're not going to be reliant on the state, not reliant on other taxpayers when they retire, which is becoming more and more common in New Zealand. And as less and less people own their own home, more of them are going to retire without anything, right? So they're going to be leaning on the government to look after them in old age. So why would you bring in something like this 296 to disincentivize saving? I just see it across the board. They're trying to stop us buying investment property. And now they don't want us to invest in superannuation. It's just tax, 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 tax. I think the plan is, it's just, without being conspiracy theorist, it's control. If you don't have any money, you're going to do as you're told. If you do have money, then you can fight back and you can say what you think and you can argue and debate. They're pushing mum and dads out of the property investment space, and they're bringing in big companies. They'll change the tax settings to make it profitable. People like BlackRock to build these big Soviet-style multi-hundred-unit apartment blocks, and nobody will own property, right? They'll just rent. Well, if you're in one of these apartments and the government of the day is paying your rent, are you likely to vote against them? Are you likely to protest against them? No, because you're reliant on them for your home. And it makes people kind of weak.
That's right. That's a good point. And I've heard you talk about this before. Like, what is rich? We have a real problem with defining that. And then we have a real problem with understanding the impacts of inflation over time and compounding returns. Like 1 million when I was young, probably same with you, John.
$1 million.
Felt like a lot of money, right? Yeah. But not anymore.
Not anymore. Now I'd say maybe 50 million, maybe 100 million, right? Enough. I mean, for me, you're rich if you can go to another country and buy a beautiful home, set up another home and have another car and travel first class. And, you don't have to worry about money. 2 million, 3 million, that's just middle class from the old days, right? Well, put it this way. When you were growing up, if you went to the house of a GP or a successful lawyer or an engineer, would you expect them to live in a nice house in a nice part of town? Yeah.
When I was young, for sure.
So today, in order to do that, you're going to spend $2 or $3 million buying that house. Yeah. So all of a sudden now you're rich. Before you were just a professional.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up.
Yeah. Again, it's like the government reaching to those that are closest rather than actually doing the hard yards and really taxing the rich. Like if you're going to tax the rich, do it properly and actually really go after the ultra high net worth people, because there is more people there, because it's easy to, once you have a lot of resource behind you, it's easy to accumulate more and more and more. And in fact, that is the mindset, is to keep on building your wealth once you have it. And it means that more and more resources will concentrate into fewer and fewer hands over time. And if you really want to solve the problem, that's where you go. But there's no political will to go there because of the incentive structure.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. The ultra rich, right? Who owns all the farmland in America? Or the biggest farmland owners? It's Bezos and Gates. You know, billionaires own so many assets, businesses and property and, you know, intellectual property rights, and that they almost have to keep buying, don't they? Because they've just got this cash coming in. They've got this income all the time. They need to constantly be hoovering up assets. Well, if you're worried about someone coming in and buying all your housing, those are the guys you need to look at, like BlackRock. Yeah. You know, not your local GP or your local lawyer. And in New Zealand, if they're super successful, right, they have their home and they have a batch and they have a nice car.
Yeah.
And they're happy. That's it. I mean, most people I know who have that, they're now playing golf.